Nice. Have you seen or checked out Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities on Netflix?
No, I have not, but and I forgive me for not remembering who the person who said this was, but someone either messaged us or wrote on Facebook that like this is what American Horror Stories should have
Should
been.
be. It's
Yeah.
kind of, I mean, it's an anthology series, obviously. Each episode is different. I've only watched two, to be honest, but the first one was really good. I was
Yeah.
impressed. I can't remember the guy's name, but he starred in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
John
Um,
Turturro.
no,
It's not Clooney, obviously. Is it the
no.
third guy?
The other guy, the shorter guy.
Uh he's been in a couple other Coen Brothers things too. I don't remember his name though.
He was really good in it. Tim Blake Nelson.
That's the one.
Yeah. It was fantastic. The second one was definitely a different tone and a little weirder, more comedy, but in its own was pretty cool too. So I recommend it. I
Worth
was
it?
try
Okay, okay.
I was trying to get um people to watch Barbarian, which I also heard was really good. But that was a little bit too long. But the hour-long format of Cabinet of Curiosities worked for people's schedules, so we watched one of those.
What's Barbarian? I'm not even
So
familiar with that.
that is also on Netflix. It is about a woman who stays at like an Airbnb, I think, and she like there's someone else in the house that she's staying with. Apparently, it's amazing.
Ah,
And
damn,
yeah,
yeah.
Justin Long is in it, and Bill Skarsgård, I guess. I didn't recognize any of the other names, but it's
Ah,
supposed to be like I've gotten a few people say like, "Dude, check it out." It is like one of the big like hits of Halloween.
the Justin Long is on. Should we make that a thing? Are we here
Yeah,
for
I'm here for it.
it?
Oh Lord. Um, anyway, it's Thanksgiving mode now, so not really.
Ooh. Yeah, I don't know that I have any horror movies that like really speak to Thanksgiving, but shall we dig in?
Let's do it.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to This American Horror Story, an unofficial podcast about the FX hit show, American Horror Story. I am your host, Tyler Moss, here with my co-host.
Chris Husted, what's up, everyone? Tyler, we are halfway through.
Halfway through, after episode number 5 of American Horror Story NYC, that episode is, in fact, titled Bad Fortune. Excited to dig into it with everybody in a minute here. A couple of things to kick things off. As always, we like to say, please feel free, as always, to reach out to us with your thoughts, theories, all sorts of those things at thisamericanhorrorstory@gmail.com, or you can message us at facebook.com/This American Horror Story. We really appreciate that with questions, theories, whatever you have. I'm going to run through a couple of comments we had from the past week. But before I do want to call out that Kris and I are approaching this week slightly differently. We're going to split up episode 5 and episode 6 rather than do the back to back, which has been taking us, I think, the past 2 weeks. I've been recording podcasts till 2:30 a.m., which listen, I don't mind, especially after a couple drinks. But just with some illnesses going around and stuff like that, we decided we're going to spread things out, spread out the wealth just a little bit. So you can expect episode 6 to drop definitely between now and next week, obviously. But in the
Right.
meantime, you've got episode 5 to keep you happy. So
Yep.
that's there. A couple things. First of all, Angela and then others were kind enough to point out to us that in fact we missed the Hannah and Adam conversation about Hannah having a baby. Obviously, after watching episode 5, that's very clear. They're having a baby together. Adam was the sperm donor, all that kind of stuff. I do want to point out, this is a personal thing to me, that I think I have a hearing problem. And I think,
Oh
I don't know if
no.
it's from listening, I don't know where it's coming from, but I've noticed it recently where, like, if I'm in any situation with people where, like, somebody's talking quietly and there's other, like, ambient noise, I'm like terrible at hearing what somebody's saying.
Mm.
And I notice it with TV shows too. If I don't have the like, I almost watch everything now with closed captioning, just because I feel like I'll miss stuff otherwise. And I think for a while I was convincing myself that it was from like accents and things, but I think literally
You
I
actually
just
have some hearing
my hearing
loss.
just
Yeah.
yeah. God, that's awful.
It's
Ah,
not unusual. I know plenty of people, not plenty of people. I know a few people in their 30s definitely just that's happening. I live with one.
too many concerts, man. I think I was
Yeah.
like, too many times I was up against the speaker, I guess. I don't know, but
You lived hard.
oh yeah. Let me tell you, no one's gonna say that about me, but yeah. So apologies for missing the pregnancy. Obviously crucial plot point, but hey, it's not like it was a surprise.
But
Um,
in our defense, a lot of people pointed out that when they started having this conversation in that scene, people thought, did I miss another scene that helped set this relationship up? I didn't even know they knew each other. So we weren't, even if we had caught
well, that
it, we
was the
would have been
spin.
confused.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly the thing. Is it like it also it kind of came out of nowhere. It
Mm-hmm.
did seem like maybe they cut a previous scene where at least we were like supposed to realize that Adam and Hannah knew each other. So
Yeah.
is what it is. The other thing I wanted to point out is Jennifer's been the one feeding us really good info on the Plum Island situation, and she sent over some more. So I'm going to read off a little bit more about the background on Plum Island, courtesy of Jennifer. Plum Island is a government research facility that was established under the USDA in 1954 to study animal diseases. This facility developed a vaccine for foot and mouth disease in 1981. It's located off the coast of Orient Point, New York, and became a Department of Homeland Security, I guess, base or outpost in 2003. On September 15th, 1978, there was an outbreak of foot and mouth disease, which required all livestock on the island be destroyed. Obviously, this harkens back to the shooting of the innocent deer. Um, that included 94 cattle, 87 pigs, 66 lambs, 28 rabbits, 27 chickens, and 6 horses. How precise. On August 18th, 1991, a hurricane led to power failure on the island, making it impossible to regulate the temperature of disease samples, and this allegedly led to illness for exposed maintenance workers. But the facility never acknowledged such claims. So there's conspiracies that really did exist around Plum Island in this capacity. There are some other unproven conspiracy theories related to Plum Island. One is that the facility was founded in the midst of midst of the Cold War for biological warfare purposes, and its primary function was to weaponize diseases, not study them. Another claims that Nazi scientist Erich Traub was recruited to work at Plum Island as part of Operation Paperclip, though there is no record of Traub's employment. Then there's the theory that the facility was conducting illegal tests and experiments on the nearby civilian residents of Lyme, Connecticut. Experts argue that documented cases of Lyme disease existed before it was identified and known as Lyme disease in 1981. Finally, some have even credited Plum Island scientists with creating the Montauk Monster after an unusual animal carcass was discovered by beachgoers in 2008, and a photograph of the creature was published by Gawker. So, all that background to say there's a lot going on with Plum Island that has as many things in the season do. It kind of has its roots in reality, although some of it is kind of obviously playing up some of the conspiracy theories. Obviously the story Fran told Hannah about having worked at Plum Island was scratching at some of the stuff around the Cold War, around Nazi biological warfare, and that kind of
Right.
So again, really appreciate the background info as always. So thanks for sending that along, folks. And before we dive into the rest of these episode, as always, we sincerely appreciate it when you folks have a chance to contribute to our ongoing server costs. If you like the show, just a little donation goes a long way. So we sincerely appreciate it. You can do that at buymeacoffee.com/TAHS. That's capital TAHS. $5, it really does make a difference. So, we sincerely appreciate it when you have the time.
Definitely. And everyone who's given us money, you guys rock. I mean, everyone, you all rock in general. You don't have to give us money, but
yeah,
we do.
No,
very thoughtful.
No, patrons, we appreciate it, and just patrons from your listenership, we appreciate that as well. Before we dive into what was this one? Bad Fortune. Kris, what are you drinking this evening?
I'm pretty boring tonight, unfortunately. I got some dad duties later, so I have a LaCroix Raz Cranberry. What do you have, Tyler?
Like fancy LaCroix Raz Cranberry. I do have cider and I think it's rye whiskey in here tonight.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, switching up slightly. So, cheers.
Cheers.
Happy post week of Halloween.
Recovery week. You want me to dive in this cold open?
Please do.
So we're back at the bathhouse, and we have a singer who is singing Witchcraft. And there's like two scantily clad backup dancers with just like towels around their waist. And we realize this is not actually Patti LuPone's character, whose name is Kathy, but it is the impersonator. And she stops the impersonator for being too nasally. She wants authenticity in her replica. But then she gets a call and at the bar, and she picks it up and she says, "You got to be effing kidding me." So then we cut to Fran, who's shopping on the street, produce shopping on the street at I'm assuming at a bodega, when she spots a psychic shop across the street. She walks in there, and it turns out Kathy runs this psychic shop. And she had, I think, 2 psychics walk out on her recently, and Fran is there to answer the help wanted sign in the front. Fran says she needs a job. Thought she already had a job writing for the village.
Oh, the native. Yeah.
The native. Okay. Village native.
I think it's just the native.
The native. Okay. But she really needs the job. She'll do anything for it. She has no experience with tarot cards. So Kathy just gives her deck, says, learn it tonight, come back tomorrow, and show me of some competency with it. And I forget how it comes out, but Kathy talks about how, this isn't psychics aren't real. This is entertainment. Everyone here who comes should leave happy. And Fran says, I'm not about just giving people happy news. I'm not about this, fake optimism in the climate of the world right now. That's just not her. And then we get to Fran at home. She's on the phone with her friend who we've seen before at the newspaper or the publication, and also at the doctor's office, with the scratch marks, the itchy friend. And they're talking, and Fran kind of comes around to it and says, like, I get what the point is. I get why she wants to, give some hope to some certain people at this time. And then her friend asked her how she's doing with it. She's like, I can't tell the devil from the hangman. And there's probably a good tarot joke in there that I just don't know, because I don't really know tarot cards that well. Anyway, Fran wakes up in the middle of the night, and she looks out her window and looks across the way to the building across the way. And in the window, she sees Big Daddy looking at her. And then we cut to the credits.
My friend Big Daddy. First of all, I want to say that Kathy's protege, the singer, I love this guy. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
He's a lot of fun. I enjoy having moments of him singing. Very playing up the Broadway. I think she didn't love that he was being kind of parody with it, but I kind of enjoyed that. So
yeah,
I appreciated it. I also think it's funny that Kathy owns this side psychic business, which I can't imagine is like a huge, moneymaker. But it reminds me of, like, I don't know. I feel like it's a trope with some things where it's like there's a small town where like the same person runs every business in town or something like that. But it's kind of obviously entertaining because it's New York City.
Schitt's Creek did that a little bit.
Yeah.
That's
what was
funny.
the realtor?
The realtor, yeah. He's also a photographer. Like, yeah, he does. Yeah.
Yeah, that was always funny. So this is all kind of amusing to me. And obviously, like, psychic shops like this are kind of a hallmark of New York City life. I don't know if you see that many around anymore after post-pandemic, but I certainly feel like they, played a role in New York history.
They always seem to be in the same locations, and they just never leave. So how are they making that much money? I guess they're
maybe
doing well.
Maybe they're all mob fronts.
That's what I was just thinking. Yeah,
I think they last time ways to like launder money or something. Also, in this scene, I mean, Kathy kind of straight up says that she's taking advantage of the gay community, because it's a certain point when they drink too much is when they come out and they want to pay fortunes. It is an interesting kind of back and forth where Fran's like, well, she wants to paint an optimistic future for them amidst this, like,
but take their money.
Take their money, and also, like, it's kind of a whitewash future when really everything is pretty bleak.
True, good point.
But obviously the cards turn themselves to a certain degree later on, in some ominous scenes. And so, and then Big Daddy shows up again. He shows up multiple times. A lot of questions for you about where Big Daddy's storyline is going at the end of this. So we'll see.
Okay,
get there.
I have some ideas.
Okay, so credits for this episode written by Arlie J. and Jennifer Salt, American Horror Story and Stories in some cases, veterans. And then Paris Barkley was the director of this episode. From what I can tell, had not done an American Horror Story episode up until now, but longtime television director, directed Glee, directed episodes of Dahmer and The Watcher as well.
Okay, so in the Brian Murphy production family, just not Horror Story.
Right, which is sometimes to me, I'm like, how are we getting a new person who existed in the Ryan Murphy universe that
Yeah,
hasn't
we
touched
did.
American Horror Story yet, you know?
Right. Oh, maybe they don't want to do it anymore. No, they do. They do.
Yeah. So Adam and Hannah, that's where we start this episode in the actual kind of meat of the episode. This is where they actually are talking about the fact that Adam was the sperm donor for Hannah. She seems way more pregnant than I feel like we've seen up
Yeah,
until now.
that's
So
what I
it's
thought
like,
too. Very
is it still
noticeable.
is it still summertime? Like how much time has passed since we last had our moment? I can't
Hmm.
imagine it's that long. So that
Right.
part's I'm like, that seems a little like she just it's almost like her baby bolt just like popped out overnight or something like that. But
Yeah.
they're walking down the street. They spot the psychic place and go in, and of course Fran is at the table.
This felt so, before we get in the scene, I wasn't happy with, I mean, it's exciting to see characters connect and cross paths, but this felt so forced with like no motivation whatsoever. First of all, we've never seen Hannah and Adam hanging out together and talking about pregnancy, with the exception of that one time at the hospital, which was very weird that we missed it. And then Fran all of a sudden decides that she's going to become a just because she was shopping and saw it across the street. It just felt very contrived and forced. And American Horror Story does that. This we know.
But this season hasn't really done that up until now. So
Exactly. That's why I was a little disappointed.
it felt a little bit out of place,
Yeah.
and it felt like a weird combo of characters. I totally agree with you. It's like, well, okay, so let's talk about it. So
Hmm.
you know, she starts reading cards for Hannah, and of course there's a death card, and then they start to get kind of pissed. So then Hannah convinces Adam to get his cards read, and then it's like I think
His first card's death.
his first card. Okay, his first card's death, and
She
then
had
Hannah
normal
gets three death
cards.
cards in a row
Yeah.
the first time.
Yeah. The first time. Yeah.
And then Adam gets like pissed off on Hannah's behalf because she's pregnant and stuff. And then it's like, but like, do we really? I mean, I guess he's the father of her child. But at the same time, it's like we haven't seen them interact until now. So how much do we
yeah.
really believe he's like very invested in upholding her honor here? Um, so they get pissed off and walk away. But then it's like the deck looks like it's all full of death cards for a minute, and then it's like the lights flash, and then it's
Normal cards. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, so are they all hallucinating or what's going on here?
I have to say that I felt like the music in the tarot scenes was overbearing. It was like it was like ominous to a corny degree for me a little bit.
Because it felt like more traditional American Horror Story where it's over the top, and everything else this season so far has been really much more subtle and for American Horror Story.
Yeah, and I felt like the music was trying to force a mood on me that I wasn't quite feeling. Like it was like, oh, you're supposed to feel like this is really spooky and terrifying as they're flipping over the death cards. And I just wasn't feeling it. So I was like, you're trying to make this a thing and it's not working for me at this point in time.
I love a good tarot card scene. Don't get me wrong. Don't worry, we're gonna have 7 more by the end of this episode.
Yeah, I don't.
But it did feel forced.
It must have been the setup. Yeah, I don't know. It must have been the setup or something. Also, part of it is like, I guess Fran was possessed at one point, and we see that a little bit later. But like, I don't know, Sandra Bernhard and Fran being the tarot reader. It's like I mean, even Kathy at one point is like, these characters have kind of been kind of funny and stuff like that. It's hard to see. Like, I feel like if we wanted to sinister tarot scene, we needed like a more ominous tarot card reader. I don't know.
Some other presence besides just 3 people dicking around.
Right. Our kind of parallel storyline here is between Barbara and Patrick. Barbara, who is like, I think we start with her like maybe throwing up in the bathroom or something. She comes back to, they're at the divorce lawyers like conference room, like fleshing out the finer details of their divorce. And she kind of says that she's been sick lately. And then
so we think pregnant probably.
Yeah, that's what I wrote in my notes too. But it was like, well, with Patrick though, I don't know.
I think they did. Yeah.
Yeah, but recently?
Good point. Good point. But maybe, yeah. Well, we'll get to it. But like maybe he was cheating on her and brought something back.
Yeah, I mean, and that's possible too, right? So hard to say, but Barbara sends the lawyers out of the room and then like seems to try to like ask him if like they can get back together, which didn't quite track with the way she'd been interacting with Gino in the past few episodes.
No,
like, he leads a stark life that she didn't even know who he really was and stuff like that.
100%. She was trying to uncover what his truth really was and trying to get Gino on board with him to help investigate. And then she's like, I want to stay friends. Let's just be married and be friends. Does not track.
I mean, I will say that the first time we met her was like, she had never not been married and on her own before. Remember, she was like, she got a job at like Sex Fifth Avenue or like some department store. She was like selling
Right.
shoes, I feel like, right?
Right.
And so I guess it tracks in the sense that like maybe it's just that she doesn't know what it's like to be alone, and
That's
that's the
true.
struggle. She got the dog, but still, like it did feel a little dissonant from where we were at last episode.
We could like I mean, I know put another scene in to show us that fear of
Yeah,
being alone, perhaps, and it would have sung a little more, but
right. After the back and forth, she signs the divorce papers and then promptly passes out,
mm-hmm,
assuming presumably related to whatever her illness is.
mm-hmm.
Uh, wakes up at the hospital. Patrick's been patiently waiting by her bedside, and she reveals that she's gotten a dog and she needs someone to take the dog out. So
Mm-hmm.
Patrick
Mm-hmm.
returns to the house. The lights don't seem to work. This scene for me was just like generally hard to see, and there was a part of me that's like, am I losing my
Too
hearing
dark.
and my eyesight?
Like this
Yeah,
Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon. It's too dark. Can't see what's going on. It was kind
yeah.
of dark.
Uh, the dog barks at a closed door. Patrick pulls his gun, and then Big Daddy's inside a closet and basically beats the shit out of Patrick and throws him around until he seems to pass out.
And starts assaulting him. I think he was trying to like grab his junk, and that's I was
Oh, so sexual assault. Yeah,
yeah, sexual assault. Sorry, yeah.
yeah.
Literally looking like he was trying to rape him. Like crossing the line from um BDSM to actual sexual violence, but
Right.
it stopped short of that, it seems.
Right. I want to put a pin in what's going on with Big Daddy till the end of this episode because I'm
Yeah.
curious to hear what your theories are. But, wake up to Patty's at the house with his cop buddies come to visit. Um, and there's a lot of questioning going on. I mean, the cop says something like, was there a tryst gone wrong or something? I don't know if we're presuming at this point that that
The
cop
department knows.
knows. Yeah,
I
like
think they do.
if like, you know, police chief Cal Penn has like passed along
Yeah.
the info to everybody else that Patrick's gay. But it seems like that was somewhat the insinuation. Patrick was like, "No way," and then also he's like, "Well, did your wife, like your ex-wife, know you were coming here? Like, she had planned your murder, basically?" And he's like, I mean, Patrick does seem to believe no, she isn't capable of that pretty quickly.
Well,
Um,
yeah, he asks a lot of questions that like, oh God, is Barbara's closet the metaphor? How did he know I was here? How did he get in the closet? Like which obviously the euphemism of a closet for, or the metaphor of the closet to come out, being in the closet, what that all means. It's a little heavy-handed, but and the questions that he asked were pretty on the. It's a little too on the nose.
on the nose, and Patrick's like, "How did he know?" So that's happening. And why don't we? Well, and then I'll just skip ahead to the part where Patrick brings Barbara back to the house. The lights are actually working this time. The house is a mess, but Barbara wants to stay at her house. And I'll hold
Shower
off
time.
until we get to the shower scene.
Okay.
In our other parallel storyline at the hospital, Adam passes Whiteley in the hall, by the way, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 episodes ago, but when we were reviewing some of the um, I guess, analogous serial killers from New York history. One of the ones we had pointed out was this Last Call Killer,
Mm-hmm.
who we thought Whiteley was based on. And folks might remember that the Last Call Killer I believe, worked at Mount Sinai Hospital as a like in the
Children's.
pediatrics department or something
Yeah,
like that.
I
Yeah.
think so.
So that lines up with Whiteley now being seen as a nurse being passed in the hospital as Adam is on his way to see Hannah. He pretending to be her husband because he wants to learn. I guess he just wants to be there for her during this
He's
blood
shown
panel,
up.
maybe, even though she didn't ask him to. But we do learn from the blood panel that Hannah has a low red blood cell count, which is a trait common for HIV patients. So,
Just like all the fire victims she took blood from, including Adam.
right, and I believe also including Theo, right?
I don't remember if she said something to Theo, and I was gonna hit rewind real quick, but I didn't. um,
Mm-hmm.
but Adam does tell Theo. He relays his information to Theo.
Right. Well, and so Adam and Theo are on the street again after this. And Theo decides that no matter, even though Adam had this terrible experience with the psychic, that it'd be romantic if they go
What a
back.
great boyfriend! You had a traumatic experience here. Let's go do it again.
Yeah, this time the cards are judgment and the devil, which both of which Fran really tries to spin into positive things
Yeah.
until she gets to death. At which point the like whole shop begins to shake, and she speaks in like a demon voice and basically says like, "You're the one who's going to die."
Hmm.
And then she comes back to is shaken back to life, and it's just like, "Oh no, it's just the subway."
Yeah.
Um, so they have a pretty disturbing experience once again, and then again flee the shop. Back at the native, Adam shares Fran's like weird tarot powers
He
with
like
Gino.
snitches on her. He's like he runs to Gino immediately and tells him all about Fran, and obviously Gino doesn't believe it, but it's just a weird conversation to have, all just to get Gino to go get his cards read.
I don't know that I believe Gino would really do this after
I
having
don't
gone
at
through it.
all. Yeah.
Like after everything else Gino's been through up until this point, he's like finally back at the paper after having been kidnapped and assaulted and having gone to the hospital because of like a weird flea infection. Um,
Would you not just wait for Fran to come to the office and be like, "Hey, Fran, I heard you're reading tarot cards. What's up with that?"
yeah, and I can't imagine, he's really, adhering
Super
close to like
special.
trying to execute on this investigation himself. And I can't imagine he really thought that going and talking to Fran in a tarot shop was going to advance his investigation.
No.
So I didn't believe this whole exchange where Adam convinces Gino to go talk to her again. Anyway, but Gino goes there and he calls out Kathy's there as well, of course. He calls out Kathy for taking advantage of the gay community, which is something we kind of talked about at the upfront of this episode. So she decides she's going to give him a reading herself. Again, he gets the same three cards that I think Theo got: Judgment, the Devil, and Death. Another deal, they cut the cards down. It's the same three cards again. And then again, like creepy scene, or supposedly creepy scene in which the lights go out. And then Kathy seems to channel some kind of demon. And then we learn it's not just a demon, but it's like the angel of death, again, kind of floating around behind her.
Which were you praying and hoping that it would be our Francis Conroy showing up as Angel
Uh,
Death again?
I was, yes, I absolutely was hoping it would be Shakath. Is that how we said the name?
Shakov. Yeah. Yeah.
Shakath. But it was I think it was a younger actress who was playing the Angel of Death in this.
They disguise her enough though that it could be. Maybe they couldn't get Francis for the cameo, but
They did the hair the same way, I feel like.
and the voice sort of
Uh,
sounded similar.
but but even then, like maybe Francis Comer would have saved this scene. I still felt like it was kind of corny. I don't know if you felt
Well,
differently. And this is the thing, is like I feel like Gino has been a great character in his storyline. I've really liked up until now, and it just felt like
this is we're stepping into the supernatural, area, and if this is our actual first introduction into an entity, it feels very out of place to happen in daytime in New York City in the basement of, or not even basement, just the front room of the psychic area through one of the most trustworthy characters that we have, Gino. And he seems very sober too, so there's not even a reason. It just, I don't know. I agree. It was a little too heavy. I mean,
right.
if this had been episode 5 of any other season, it would have been just right at home probably, because we would have seen this scenes like this from the jump. But this is different.
It felt out of place. And then of course it's like um it's very, I feel like this entire episode just felt a little bit too on the nose, to use your phrase earlier. It was like everybody around you is dying, everybody's sick,
You're trying
everybody's
to save
deteriorating.
them.
Yeah,
You're
I
just
mean,
scared too, little boy. I don't know.
yeah, I know. It was like everything up until now has been, I've done a good job of like subtly conveying this message, and it was like there's not really a reason to be so hit me over the head with a blunt instrument about it.
Hmm.
But a couple, how does this episode end? We have Barbara prepping a shower while Gino's in the bath. I think they both notice skin lesions, or at least they both have skin lesions, but I don't know if Barbara notices hers, right?
I just saw
Um,
Barbara trying to masturbate.
okay, so she didn't have skin lesions and Gino had the skin lesions. So
Yeah.
Gino's exploring his skin lesions while she's kind of getting off to the memory of Patrick. And
Yeah, I couldn't tell if he was actually in the bathroom shaving, or if she's just having a memory of him.
oh,
I think
I don't think he was really there.
okay,
I
so
think it was the
she
memory.
was got it. Okay.
Because that's where he finds her later, right? So
Yep.
she's getting off to the memory of him in there, and then all of a sudden, Big Daddy appears in the shower behind her and strangles her, right?
Hmm. Yep, from behind. Well, yeah, we see Gino. Yeah, we think Gino sees him behind in his mirror, and then he looks back, disappears, and then boom, he's behind Barbara.
Yes. And then, of course, Patrick goes to check in on Barbara and finds her dead in the bathroom, and absolutely pissed, he goes home and like is ready, or he goes outside and is ready to like fight the cops who were in the car outside.
Mm-hmm.
Because how did that person get in there?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Where did he
Back at
go?
home, right. Back at home, Gino's comforting Patrick, and I think this is when Gino notices a sore on Patrick. Like
Yes.
under
Yep.
under
Yeah, Gino's kind of cradling Patrick, and then he kind of pulls his like tank top down a little bit, and you see he's got a little lesion on the back of his shoulder.
right.
So he
And then
got it.
exactly. And then the episode ends with Mr. Whiteley,
Mm.
um, who is has apparently some really large warehouse type space where he
Yeah.
has the two artists strapped to like surgery tables. Um, and he kind of gives this whole spiel, as a good villain does, about changing the city and they're not dying in vain and this and that. And then he specifically calls out the Pride Parade that's upcoming in 2 weeks. Um, and how bullshit it is. So an inflection point in this season is going to be the Pride Parade. So
Yep.
maybe I don't think that's the body. It's probably 2 episodes out, I would guess.
I was
Two or
just
3.
gonna check the name of the episodes. I'm sure we can figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And lowers this like strange contraption, which at first I thought was just like a crucified victim, but it seems to be a some kind of like person puppet that's sewn together from various victims.
Yeah, he even calls it. Yeah, so it's kind of like a Frankenstein type thing.
I was going to say more like a Buffalo Bill type
Or
situation.
Buffalo Bill type thing. He's been collecting body parts and creating his own body that he's going to bring to
So
Pride.
maybe that's what the body is about, right? Is it's
Yeah,
about the sewn together bodies. So that could be our
yeah,
prediction.
yeah. He calls it the Sentinel. I think he's piecing it together to be a
Oh,
Sentinel.
okay. So that's 2 episodes away. It's one called the Sentinel. So
Yeah,
maybe
so I think that
that's it.
might be it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, it reminds me of with two things it reminds me of. I forget which Saw film it is, but there's like a trap where they're in, like this woman's in this like crucifix thing. There's actually
Yeah,
probably more traps that are like that. Um, and it also reminds me of like a Batman villain. There's like it's so cartoonish that he like cranks this thing down, and there's a body like as like a save in the savior position,
yeah.
sewn up and stuff. Like it's just so over the top.
As the people are writhing with gags in their mouths. It's funny that you
Yeah.
say that because over the weekend, I watched two like I watched Beetlejuice and
Oh,
I
nice.
watched the Tim Burton Batman with
Oh,
Michael Keaton.
nice.
It was like two,
Your Michael Keaton weekend.
Tim Burton, Michael Keaton
Yeah, that's
weekend
right.
in preparation for Halloween, and it's totally like that Batman where it's like over the top kind of.
Yeah, like
Well,
cartoonish villain.
which again, I mean, that type of movie was intended to feel campy, and so
Hmm.
it's a little bit more in that more kind of
This fits
traditional
in that vein.
historical American Horror Story vein. I felt like this episode stepped out of the kind of noir that we
Yeah.
had been in up until now. And how did you feel about it, Kris?
Yeah, I mean, so I felt a little disappointed with it. I did I have fun with it? Yeah, and the tarot card reading scenes, that's kind of fun, and we went there multiple times. We already talked about how it felt forced and contrived and putting these people in those situations. Um, was it fun and did I enjoy the hour I spent watching it? Absolutely. Like I liked it. It's a little disappointing that it's veered from the tone that it had set in the first 4 episodes, which was so different than what it's done, but still had a great story that it was telling, had its issues here and there. And this one just kind of is turned out a more traditional American Horror Story episode. Characters made choices that didn't make sense or did things that they forgot they did in the previous episode. The spooky factor was campy, a little over the top, and not as mood or atmospheric as it has been for the rest of for the front half of the season. So, it is fine. I enjoyed it. I didn't hate it. It's different. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that this episode felt like a droopy middle for the season. It felt like the tone felt a little tinny. I don't know, not quite there. Off to your point. I
Yeah.
mean, it felt like a convergence. It felt like a filler episode to me, kind of, which is a disappointment. Um, I don't know
Yeah.
how much it really advanced the story. I guess Barbara's dead, but like, what role was she really playing previously? Otherwise, I don't know that I really have a feel for like how did this really advance much of anything, other than we get like a little bit of Whiteley's,
At the
motivations at
end.
the very, very end, which maybe we just needed more of that and less of the tarot stuff. The tarot stuff was like seemed kind of out of nowhere, bad character combinations, trying
Forced
to make us
Fran.
feel poor Fran, it tried to make us feel like it was spookier than it really was. Put Gino in a situation that felt out of character too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wasn't a huge fan of any of that. So that was kind of a bummer. Before we give ratings, tell me where your mind's at on Big Daddy.
Okay, so he clearly is showing up when with people who are infected, it seems.
So
Now
we
that
think Barbara has HIV.
I mean, she was sick, and I don't think she was pregnant because that's a darker place that they would go if they're killing her off and they find out that she was pregnant. Um, I think she does. I think, like I said, I'm theorizing that Patrick cheated on her when he was doing his leather stuff, and he brought
Mm-hmm.
the disease into the house, and I think he probably still was intimate with Barbara, maybe not all the time, but was enough that maybe he did get her sick, unbeknownst to him, obviously. And he's shown up to Gino, he's shown up to Patrick, Big Daddy, that is, and now Fran, and I don't know if we know Fran for sure, but Fran obviously we know is hooking up with Itchy Girl, who that was at the doctor, and then also now we know that Adam
Yeah,
has the low blood count and Hannah has the low blood count, and so that could mean that
Theo Hurley
Theo
does.
has it. Thank you. I'm trying to remember everyone's name correctly. So obviously those are all our main characters, but I think they're all, we're seeing Big Daddy around them because they are infected. Uh, and
So Big Daddy is just as a metaphor for HIV that also like the metaphor has some kind of manifestation in reality that in the case of like Barbara really can like appear as a person and strangle her or appear in
mhm,
her apartment to like beat the shit out of and assault Patrick.
yes, yes, that could be it. Or, if you want to look at it in like a more positive light, maybe Big Daddy is trying to prevent the spread and he's going around killing people who before they keep having sex with other people, perhaps. But then we would see Big Daddy handling probably with Sam or someone who's a little more promiscuous. uh
Yeah,
but that's just a possibility. So I mean, I think we've identified like where he shows up and who he's showing up to.
right. Yeah. So given all that, where you land on this episode?
I've been giving everything, I think, 4.25 to 4.75 for the first couple episodes. I'm gonna give this one 3.75. I thought it was good. I had a good time. It was fun, but it definitely veers into a different territory and not a lot happened, like you said. The only advancement of the story is we have more information about um Mr. Whiteley. Barbara's death doesn't mean anything to me because she flip-flopped her character and didn't serve anything in the story as far as I know besides spinning wheels. Um Fran's whole learning about the Kathy's other operation, I don't know what that really means for the I'd rather have just stayed at the bathhouse and like had more of that dynamic there because that's more fun. So I don't know. Seems like filler. Yeah, I think you're right. So 3.75
Yeah.
by ties.
Well, and for that reason, I'm going to drop it even a quarter point from that and give it a 3.5 for me. And that's, I mean, a lot of that is in comparison to 4 episodes leading up until this that I felt were really good and really on point, really
Yeah.
consistent in tone, really like the characters felt very real and authentic and to most of the extent like their actions seemed to like logically make sense with each other. And then this episode felt just offbeat in all those different ways. Um, so because of that kind of divergence, I feel like it, not didn't quite hit the mark for me in that regard. So we're looking at a what? That's 3 and 3 plus 0.75 and 0.5. So that puts
7.25.
us at 7.25. Thank you for following mental math. Um, 7.25 for this episode, which I think is probably our lowest of the
That's not
season. Again, it's
that's
not
not
terrible, but
yeah, but for this
this
season,
this episode has getting high marks, and so it's off in that regard. Um, but anyway, that's where we're at after the episode. But I'll be curious to see where the body leaves us,
hmm
which we will be reviewing in short order. But until then, Kris, where can people find you between now and the body?
I'll be on Instagram and Twitter at Kris Husted. Chris with I don't know how much longer I'm gonna be on Twitter. Actually, it's
I was about to
turning.
ask you, are you going to pay for your blue check mark?
Hell no. But yeah, it's a lot of conversations happening. Like, is that the world I want to be in? I mean, professionally for journalism, you sort of have to have like a window into it. But personally, do I want my world out there the way it's going? I'm leaning toward no. So we'll see. But anyway, Tyler,
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say you can find me on YouTube, I guess, at this
yeah.
American Horror Story
Oh,
podcast on
that's right.
YouTube.
That's right. Just search for us, this American Horror Story podcast on YouTube, and we show up. We have 4 videos up, and this will be the fifth. So
Yeah, welcome to it. We appreciate your views. All right, everybody. Thanks for riding along with us. We'll look forward to talking with you about the body soon. And until then, happy hauntings.